Welcome to Real World Peaceful Parenting, a podcast for parents that are tired of yelling, threatening, and punishing their kids. Join mom and master certified parent coach Lisa Smith as she gives you actionable, step-by-step strategies that'll help you transform your household from chaos to cooperation. Let's dive in.
Welcome to today's episode. I know I say this every week, folks. I know. But today I am really excited to bring you this episode. I am joined by a very special guest today. Aimee Buckley is here, and I've had the pleasure of having a few conversations with Aimee about education and learning and how parents can support their kids. And we thought that now would be the perfect time to bring you some insight on how to get prepared for the upcoming school year. I know those of us that live on this side of the world are preparing to go back to school, and those of you living on that side of the world are already in the middle of school. And so it seemed like an absolutely perfect time to have this robust conversation about parenting and learning. So again, I'm joined today by Aimee Buckley. Aimee, welcome. I'm so thrilled to have you here.
Thank you so much for inviting me, Lisa. I'm excited to talk about this topic because it's near and dear to my heart. With children heading back to school, I'm heading back myself on August 9th. So I know that there's a lot of emotion around that for teachers, parents, and kids, both excitement and apprehension at what this year is going to bring us, with the last 2 years being so different from what we have normally experienced.
Yes, my son and actually, today is my son's birthday, so let me just give a little shout out to Malcolm. He's 17 today, which is really hard for me to believe. It's like hard to even get it out of my mouth that I have a 17-year-old, but he'll be a junior this fall or when he goes back to school. And we've been having conversations a lot lately about what was, and then, prior to the pandemic, what school was like. And he even mentioned that he's even having trouble remembering what it was like. And then there was this period of time where every day was uncertain and different and challenging. Mm-hmm. And then we've been talking about what it's going to be like to go back to, quote, normal, right? Whatever that is. And really trying to think about how is school going to be different. So I want to jump into that. First, why don't you give us some background, Aimee, on how you came to be the founder of Study Help, and a little bit about your background so that we can understand where you're coming from.
Sure. So I have been teaching. I've been a public school teacher for 25 years, and there's always been a need I've felt to really help students and their families to be as successful as possible. And it's something I've been thinking about for quite a while. But then when schools were shut down, I knew that kids were going to need even more than what we could provide them in the classroom, just due to the limited scope of what we can actually do. So we launched this platform where we connect real credentialed teachers with families who need extra help. And what is really lovely about it is that those students get 50 minutes of uninterrupted one-to-one time with a credentialed teacher who doesn't just know the material, but knows it well enough to teach it to a variety of students with different needs and different backgrounds. So it really is a deep dive immersion into the content, but also the ability to create that relationship with the student so that they feel comfortable and confident to ask the questions that they need, that they might be apprehensive to do in the classroom because they don't want to sound stupid, or they're just generally shy and embarrassed to raise their hand. So it's just a way to really help students gain the skill sets and the depth and breadth of content to really be successful in the classroom and hopefully in life, because that's really the goal of school, right? Is not the grade on the report card, but developing citizens who are productive and contributing to the economy and our society.
I love that. I love that. I love matching up the students with the credentialed teacher for that one-on-one time, because I know, one of the characteristics of strong-willed kids is they like to look like they know what they're doing all the time. And so that idea of asking questions, putting themselves out there and risking, embarrassment, it can be tough for kids. It can be really tough, particularly in the preteen and teenage years. And so having a resource that the student can go to deepen their learning, to ask all the questions they don't understand. I remember being in school and sometimes being so lost that I didn't even know what to ask. Right. So this is where having that resource can really help. So tell us, Aimee, how do we catch up after a year of remote learning? What are your tips and advice there?
So the first thing I would say is the most important part is to try and reduce the anxiety around catching up, that everyone is in the same boat. And we know as teachers that certain subjects already come with their own anxiety. We know that there is technically something that is math anxiety, and it's not a matter of can you learn it or not. It's that there's so much anxiety around learning it that there's this block, a mental block. So we need to make sure that we don't build that wall by placing our own anxieties on our children, but also help them lower that wall and understand that they can learn it. It's okay if they don't understand it in the beginning, and find a different method to introduce that material to them. So I actually specialize in special education. And people always say to me, oh, you must be so patient. And the truth is that I'm not a patient person at all. What I do is I don't give up. So if I try and teach a topic to a student and I can tell that they have not grasping what I'm saying, then I come at it from another angle. And if that doesn't work, then I come at it from another angle and another angle and another angle until I can get through that wall of, I don't understand. I'm so overwhelmed. Because as adults, we know that when you're super frustrated and anxious, it's really hard to take in information. The more relaxed our brains are, the easier it is to absorb. So I'd say that's the first step. The second step is creating an environment where it is conducive to learning, because we have so many distractions right now that does not mean sitting at a desk or a table working on your homework. If in my own classroom, I have multiple places that students can sit to work, because really we want them to be able to focus on what they're doing. So even right now, while I'm talking to you, I'm sitting on one of those big exercise balls, right? I'm not in a chair. So creating a space where they can focus. And that means that if they need to fidget and move around and have happy feet, that does not mean that they are not working. So it's really important for us as adults to not look at that and say, oh, you need to settle down. Cut it out. Stop fidgeting and focus on your work, because they might be really focusing. And by interrupting their thoughts in that moment, we have really set the process back for them.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. When my son was, he's a fidgeter, got a little ADHD. And when he was in first grade, he could not sit still to save his life. And fortunately, so fortunately for us, he had the most amazing first grade teacher ever, Mrs. Crotty. And she put this big, giant piece of Velcro up underneath his desk that only he knew was there, so he could run his hand back and forth all day on this piece of Velcro. And he got that tactile feedback from the stickiness, from the nubbiness of the Velcro. She also occasionally let him push not occasionally, but she would let him push his chair back and kneel down at the desk and swing his legs back and forth. And this allowed him to learn because his body needed to be in motion. And she didn't in any way take that personally or make it mean anything. She put him in an area of the classroom that wasn't going to disturb other kids, but really understood, to your point, creating a conducive learning environment. And I think that's so important, even at home when they're doing homework. Again, my frame of reference when this topic is my own kid, and we have a basketball court in our backyard, and often he's studying while shooting baskets. He's got flashcards, and I'm quizzing him on the flashcards while he's shooting free throws. Right. And it creates the most amazing learning environment because his body is engaged and then his mind can learn.
And the blood is flowing.
Yes. Yes. And he's not working so hard to hold it all together.
Right. Exactly.
In a way.
Exactly. That is the perfect way of describing it. They don't need to hold it all together. Yeah. They just need to focus on what they're doing in terms of the math or the spelling or the science. Yeah. And if that means that they're shooting baskets or bouncing crazy on a yoga ball or what have you, then that's what they need to do. And we should let them do it. And that is not in any way inhibiting their learning. It's actually propelling it. So it's important for us as adults. I think when we were younger, we were told that, you have to sit still in class. And I think that was a terrible thing to do to children and to teach us as adults.
Yeah, I can't sit still very well. I mean, when I worked in my corporate America job, every year on my review, my boss would say, gosh, you're fidgety in meetings. And I would be like, yeah, I'm not the girl that can just sit there. My brain works in a way that I'm often doodling or fidgeting or scribbling while I'm thinking. So I don't know why we expect humans with underdeveloped brains to sit still and at full attention.
Yeah. And the last tip I would give you is that as a parent, if you're working with your child on their homework and they start to get to that level where they are losing it and you start to lose it, that's the time to call in reinforcements, because it's not helping them. It's not helping you. It's not helping your relationship. And it's going to create these memories that spelling is hard or math is hard or in high school algebra is hard. And you can go to a tutoring platform like my own and find someone who knows what they're doing, or maybe you have grandma that's really good at that, or my sister-in-law will call me often when it gets to the point. She'll send me a picture of my sweet niece who is like the gentlest, kindest, sweetest little girl. Like, she is an amazing kid. And she sent me this picture of her with just like her hair crazy and the red and the tears. And it was so unlike her. She's like, she's not understanding addition when they take out a number and you're not looking for the answer. You're looking what goes in the sentence. And I was like, okay, let's take it back. And it's time for you to stop working with her on this. Give her a breather, do something fun. And then let's have a FaceTime call and I will show her. And what I did was I made a happy face, but it was missing the eyes. And so I talked to her. I said, okay, well, what's on this that's missing? And she's, the eyes. I said, yeah, that's all we're doing. We're just looking for what's missing in the sentence. You know that 2 + 5 is 7. If we take the 5 out, it's just like taking the eyes off the happy face. We just want to put in what's missing. So by reframing it, she was able to understand what's going on. It didn't become this new mystery concept. It was something that she already knew, more like being a detective than learning something brand new.
I like it. I like it a lot. Let's talk about this, Aimee. Because the other thing that's going to happen when kids go back into the classroom and they come home from school at the end of the day is there's going to be a lot of after school meltdowns, right? And this is a lot of the work that I work with parents on and a lot of the content that I help parents work through. A lot of times those after school meltdowns are real because the emotional backpack is filled up all day. Yes. And, they're holding it together, and so what I want parents to hear is that's okay. It doesn't mean anything's gone wrong.
No.
It doesn't mean your child can't handle school. It just means that they need to come home to their safe place.
Right.
And have that storm and meltdown so they can progress through the rest of the afternoon and evening. And I just want parents to hear that that's okay and that's normal. Don't be afraid or disappointed or angry at your kids. It's that they've held it together all day.
They have.
I talk about this all the time. Right. School is a place you're not in control. People are telling you, sit down, stop talking, talk, raise your hand, don't raise your hand, go to the bathroom. You can't go to the bathroom, eat lunch, stop eating lunch.
Yes.
And they just need to come home and kind of let that all out. What is your experience on that? As
adults, we plan for that, don't we? I know going back in 2 weeks when I head back on August 9th, that the first 2 weeks are going to be insane. All new kids learning all new things. A lot of parents who I fully understand are under a lot of stress with what's happening. And I know that that's going to fall for me as a teacher. So I am already planning, this is what I'm going to do when the day ends to manage my emotions and the stress of my day. Children have only been on the planet for a few years, right? They don't have this experience. They don't know to plan ahead. I would definitely, as a parent, plan for that downtime at the end of the day where they can just, right? Just let all that emotional baggage, that stress go, do something that for them is a really good release, and know that if they do cry or have a meltdown, that they need to get it out, that is important, because that's going to make it easier for them if they're not trying to hold all that energy in. School is hard. And for children, we have to remember that so much of every day is new. It's constantly a barrage of newness, new experiences, new information. We as adults don't do that. If you think about starting a new job, when you start a new job, the first couple of weeks, you feel like an idiot, right? You're like, I don't know. I don't even know where the bathroom is. So we need to let them have that time. So right after school is not the time to jump into homework. It is not the time to do something that is very stressful and emotional. That's the time to go out and shoot the hoops, or to play on their swing set, or as a teenager, FaceTime and hang out with their friends, or whatever they're going to do, to give them that opportunity to reset.
Yeah, totally. That is something I had to learn, because when my son started to reach a point where there was a fair amount of homework, in my mind, just come home from school and get it done. Right. And then you have the whole evening free. And also my son's been someone who's always played sports. So there's always, been practices and whatnot. And I had to learn the right study environment for him. And it certainly wasn't coming home from school and immediately doing his homework. As a kid who worked really hard to hold it together all day at school, he needed to come home and just decompress for a little bit, unpack his emotional backpack, have some food, do something non-study related, and then come back to the homework later. And I love, Aimee, when you said for kids, every day is new, because it's so true. I mean, they're learning so much about navigating life,
right?
Conflict management, time management, getting from A to B. I mean, they're learning a ton without even school, and then throw school onto it. Right. And
exactly,
they're drinking from a fire hose basically for 18 years.
Right. If we think about, for those of us who have traveled abroad and you're in another country, and everything that you're experiencing that day is new, but that obviously is fun, because you're like, woo, I'm on this vacation, but they're not on vacation. And every single day, is this avalanche of newness. I know we know this for babies, where they had that witching hour in the evening where they just have that meltdown almost every night. We need to understand that as kids get older, it's still so new. with teenagers, when they're having meltdowns in my classroom, which definitely happens, I always remember that I've had 40 some odd years to learn how to manage my emotion. They haven't.
Yes.
So they don't have any tricks and tips up their sleeve. It's up to us to teach them that skill set, to work with them and find what helps them manage their own emotion, even with their own calendars. I mean, once you get to high school, you start managing that on your own. But until then, pretty much mom and dad and teachers told you everything.
Yeah. And as we know now, the prefrontal cortex, it isn't fully developed until the age of 25. So many times we have, I think that we have very high expectations of our children, and their brain developmentally is just not there.
Right.
I mean, we're training it, we're preparing it, we're developing it, but it is not there. So you're right. Managing time, managing emotions, managing stress, forward looking, okay, I have a paper due next Thursday. I should be working on it every night for 20 minutes. Sometimes this is hard for the brain of kids.
Yes.
Okay. So let's recap, Aimee. The advice that you're giving us, which I love, is reduce our anxiety as our kids go back to school, which I think is a really important point. It is the best word that comes to mind all the time is we live in a topsy-turvy world right now.
Yes.
Right. And there's normal anxiety from life. And then there's anxiety of what's going on in the world. And then you might be layering anxiety on top of that about your kids going back to school, depending on how you feel about everything in the world. So one of Aimee's biggest pieces of advice and my takeaway from today is make sure I'm reducing my anxiety and encouraging my child to reduce their anxiety as well, right? As we head back into the classroom. And your second piece of advice was make the environment conducive to learning.
Yes, absolutely.
And I think that you're telling us that is not just the physical environment, but the attitude and the emotional environment around learning as well, right?
Right. Definitely very important.
And then number 3 was just thinking about, and what I heard is an after-school strategy.
Yes.
Know your kid. Meltdowns are going to happen. They're okay. There's a lot going on for them. Every day is a new day. Be patient, be understanding, and then work to create, again, a conducive environment after school. If your child needs a break before learning, if they need some downtime, really create an environment. And I would guess also a routine around learning, but create one that works not only for the parent, but the student as well.
Yes, the student is very important.
Yeah, perfect. Awesome. Anything else you want to share with us as I recapped here?
I think that you have really grasped what we talked about today. And I think that these are a lot of strategies to start off with. So even though it's something that we can talk about in 20 minutes, it takes a long time to implement.
Definitely. And I think this is the perfect time to have this conversation. I'm so glad that we had an opportunity to connect, Aimee, because as people are starting to get closer and closer to the start of school, I know your start date is right around the corner. Yes. It is a good idea to start thinking about a back to school strategy now and prepare yourself and have some conversations with your kids about what is back to school going to be like, because I think kids have more concerns and anxiety about this than we may even think. And it's good to have lots of open conversations in the family. What is this going to be like? What is it going to look like? What is it going to feel like for all of us, for the school, for the teachers, for the students, and for the parents? Yes?
Right. It's definitely going to be different than it was last year or the year before or the year before that.
Yes.
So I know some students, and I know for myself, we will all be in masks all day. So from 8:30 till 3:30, and that's going to be a long haul. So preparing ourselves for that situation, which I know a lot of people think, oh, well, this is just a mild inconvenience. But in the scheme of teaching, it does make it really challenging. When you can't see a student's face, you don't always know what emotion they're feeling, it's harder to hear them. So you have to ask them to repeat themselves a lot. The students might not hear me as clearly, even though I'm going to try my best. I will have a mask over my face. So there's things that we have to mentally prepare for, because if we walk in the first day and we're not anticipating that it's going to be hard, I think that's a big mistake.
I agree. And I think we also shouldn't underestimate the energy drain, and it will be taxing to have to speak louder all day, to have to speak clearer, to have the mask on, to navigate that world for our children. And I think that's a great reminder, is just, boy, at the beginning of the school year, empathy and patience could be our best tools as parents with our children, with the school, with our teachers, right?
Yes, thank you.
Yes.
Putting that in there.
A lot of empathy and understanding, because it's hard for all of us, and doable and exciting to be back in the classroom.
Oh, yes, definitely.
Right? I mean, definitely exciting. One thing that we learned in our family in 2020/2021 is the remote learning is not my son's jam. And I know, some kids did great. Some kids did, fine. And some kids did not do well. And we fell into that did not do well category. My son definitely needs to be back in the classroom, and we're excited for him to go. Mm-hmm. But empathy and understanding for all of us will go a long way right now.
Right.
Yeah. Absolutely. So to all the teachers out there that are going to go back into the classroom and wear a mask and teach our kids and have the attitude like you have, Aimee, on behalf of Real World Peaceful Parenting, I say thank you. A huge shout out and lots of love to all the teachers.
Big shout out to all the teachers.
Big shout out. Big shout out. Great job the teachers do. Okay, so if someone wants to find you and work with Study Help, where can they go to do that, Aimee?
So if you go to study.help, that's all you have to put in your Google search. It will pull up our website. On our website, there is a red button that you can push to have a consultation with me. And what will happen is you and I will meet and we will discuss your child. What their strengths are is always the first thing I ask. What are the challenges and what are their interests? Because if I know what their strengths are and what their interests are, I can really address the challenges from the best possible angle. And that is the information that when I connect with the teacher that I think would be the best fit for them, is the information that I give them so that they can go in day one with these tools to help the student be as successful as possible. And I would say, even for the students who online learning wasn't their jam, this isn't online learning like what you experienced in the classroom, because it is one-to-one. It's more like if you think about your kids FaceTiming their friends. It's much more like that because it's one-to-one. So you can't really get lost in the shuffle of the screen because you're really interacting one-to-one with the teacher. And it is a relationship that gets built. So it's more of a conversation and guiding the child than it is teaching when we think of traditionally in the classroom.
I love it. I love it. Your website is wonderful. I've had a chance to visit and have a look around, and it's really, you've got a lot of great resources on there. So I want to encourage everybody to go to study.help. And as Aimee said, hit that red button. We'll link to the website in the show notes. Aimee, you are so passionate about helping children. We are fortunate to have you. Your students, I'm sure they just love you and benefit. And thank you for all you're doing to help match up learners with teachers. It's a beautiful service. And, we benefit from your desire to help. And it's been really fun talking with you today. I really enjoyed it. And thanks for the tips on how to walk back into the classroom with confidence and ease. Super helpful. I know everybody listening's enjoyed it.
Thank you for having me. And I love your podcast. It's wonderful.
Oh, thank you. Yay. Okay. So there you have it. The 3 strategies that we're going to work on: reduce anxiety, create a conducive learning environment, and have an after-school strategy. Until we meet again, I'm wishing you peaceful parenting. Take care, everyone.
Thank you so much for listening today. I want to personally invite you to head over to thepeacefulparent.com/welcome and sign up for my free Peaceful Parenting mini course. You'll find everything you need to get started on the path to peaceful parenting just waiting for you over there at www.thepeacefulparent.com/welcome. Can't wait for you to get started.
Thanks for listening to Real World Peaceful Parenting. If you want more info on how you can transform your parenting, visit thepeacefulparent.com. See you soon.